Hey guys, we're going to dive right into some server data. I finally got finished putting it together, but I really quickly want to go through a few disclaimers from this data because I know it's not perfect, so I just want to address some of those imperfections. So number one, these numbers, I ran a scan once using this census add-on, so it really depends on who was online during that time. I pulled it roughly the same time for each one, so the numbers should be somewhat similar across servers. So look at the ratio rather than the numbers. The actual server populations are probably much higher. If I were to run it over a 24 to 48 hour period or even longer, they become even more accurate. Number two, this is not true for Jom Gabbar. That's the server I'm playing on. And so I actually ran the /who census thing multiple times. And so I tried to do it a bunch of times on the Alliance side too. I don't know the exact numbers, so don't look into those exact numbers too much. Again, try to pay attention more to the ratios. And so, yeah, keep in mind, it's based on who's on. Numbers may have dwindled. Things may have changed. So those disclaimers out of the way, let's look at some of the data that's been gathered. So this is the overview. Obviously, you can see it's pretty accurate just based off one initial pull of the data. You can see Jom Gabbar being the highest population server, sort of descending down, Shadowstrike, so on. The population numbers are pretty interesting. Kind of interesting comparing it to what the Discord numbers were. You can see it's kind of the same, but also there's some surprises. But very, very cool stuff. It's good to see the server balance is pretty good, particularly in Barman Shanker is looking very, very well. You can see Shadowstrike is definitely Alliance dominated. Obsidian Edge actually really surprised me. There was, out of all the servers that I was doing this for, the starting areas here were the most populated, which was kind of cool if you're looking for a new server. There seems to be a lot of people re-rolling constantly. I wonder why, the hardcore challenge. But it's mostly quite Alliance dominated, so keep that in mind. Mutanus, pretty fair split. Nightfall, pretty fair. And then both the Australia servers, honestly, very, very dead. If you were to ask me, there was almost no one playing. But yeah, seems like they're Alliance dominated, if you can even dominate. It's sort of dead, to be honest. So this is sort of the high level overview. We're going to now dive in server by server and look at some really interesting stuff. So here's Jom Gabbar. You can kind of see the high level overview at the top, but also we're going to look at some horde race and class distributions. So I just thought this was kind of interesting. Undead was the most played at 40%. That means almost half of all horde are undead. That just shows, Will of the Forsaken just being the best PvP racial. I'm betting that's probably why people rolled undead. You can see rogue is also the top class at 19.17%. So nearly 1/5 of all horde characters on Jom Gabbar horde are rogues. And most likely undead rogues. Of course, there's probably 20% that are other races such as orc or troll. But you can see undead rogue is huge. You can see mage, probably some undead mages there, as well as warrior, undead warrior, orc warrior, of course, other things like that. But those are the top classes, and this is definitely what I would expect with the meta. Rogue is very good in classic WoW, so is warrior, and so is mage, especially in PvE situations. So not too surprised. You can also see here on the top right, top guilds by XP. We can see that Worthless is the most worthwhile guild to be in by XP. I don't know. But yeah, these are the top guilds. Didn't ask, Phoenix Down, Rock Apes, Boring, so on. Those are the top guilds by XP. Again, this is probably more accurate than some of the other stuff just because I ran so many /who like censuses using that add-on for horde Jom Gabbar. So this is probably pretty accurate. You can see the distribution here of how people leveling. So if you're wondering, am I behind the curve? Am I ahead of the curve? You can see this is a nice bell curve. If you're familiar with statistics, you can see this is where most of the people fall. And that is in the 20s. So if you're basically anywhere from level 20 to 29, you're pretty much right with the pack. You can see there's one person that's 60 when I took this, and there's a bunch of people in their 50s, 40s, 30s, and then most people in the level range of 20s. There's definitely a lot of newbies though too. So, depending where you fall in the range, that's sorted for Jom Gabbar. Moving over to the Alliance side, we can see human at 40%. Most people are playing human. There's some great racials with human, sword, mace, expertise, things like that. We can see rogue is pretty popular. Hunter is pretty popular. Mage is actually the most popular here for Alliance. We got 18.61%. So most popular class for Alliance and Jom Gabbar is actually Mage. Warrior's actually up there as well. So it seems like it's really Warrior, Hunter, Rogue, Mage are the top 4 here for Alliance. Similar curve if you were to compare to the Horde. Seems like 20s, but there's a good chunk of people that are in their like 30-ish area. So that's kind of cool. And then we got top guilds by XP, Ides, Ashes, Lost Chapter, Ironforged Thugs, Of Love and Family. That's a quest. Cool guild name. So that's Jom Gabbar. Let's move on to Shadowstrike. We got to move through this with decent pace. I'm going to link this in the description below, so if you want to go peruse this at your own speed, feel free to do that too. I'm just going to point out some interesting stuff. We can see here Mage at 21% here for Shadowstrike, and we're going in order of most populated to least populated, so Shadowstrike being the second most populated server from my data, and the overview kind of shows that it's a full server as well. We're seeing a lot of undead, of course, mostly undead mages here on this server. We're also seeing Warrior up there, very high, and Hunter. Surprisingly, more Hunter than Warrior. So mages and Hunters, most popular, with a Warrior pretty much tied with Hunter as well. Similar curve. If you're level 20-ish, you're keeping up with the pack. Moving up with Alliance, same sort of deal. Seems like human is really the most popular race. We've got Warrior being very popular, Hunter being actually very popular, and Mage being the most popular. So we can actually see kind of a consistency on Shadowstrike. Seems like Mages are the most popular class on this server for both factions. So that's kind of cool. Echo is the top guild for Alliance, not optimal, top guild by XP for Horde. So that's some interesting stuff there. Moving on to Barman Shanker. This is a server that's really equally populated, which is kind of cool. We can see Undead Mage is kind of dominating here with 23.24% of all Horde being Mage and 40% being Undead. Similar curve, so keep that in mind. Pretty much everyone whose average is around level 20 or so. Moving over to Alliance, we also have Mages being at the top. Actually, it seems like there's less humans, but still humans are dominating in terms of the most race. Top guild by XP is Simple. There's Copium there. We got the Oran Thule for Horde for Barman Shanker. So pretty cool. A lot of similarities going on here. Surprisingly, not a lot of Alliance rogues on Barman Shanker, which is kind of interesting. And you know what? Neither for Horde. This is kind of different than what we've been seeing. Barman Shanker. Not a lot of people going for the Barman Shanker, I guess. That dagger. Moving over to Obsidian Edge, I think this is one of the most interesting of the servers, especially since there's a lot of streamers on here. We can see it's very Alliance dominated at 73% Alliance. We can see a pretty even-ish class distribution, but really a very even race distribution for Horde. Of course, we're looking at smaller numbers, and that can lead to some strangeness going on, but we can see 26.62% undead. Typically, we're seeing that around 40% on other servers. Orc and Tauren, both pretty high as well. Actually, Troll is the most played race on Horde Obsidian Edge. That is crazy. That's totally different from everything else I've been seeing. Berserking is good. Troll regeneration is good. Perhaps some of those PvE abilities. This being the hardcore realm. Orc, this is pretty crazy. We are seeing Mage being the most populated class, though, as well. But let's move over and talk a little bit about Alliance on Obsidian Edge. We can actually see top guilds by XP. I think this is kind of interesting for a lot of people doing the hardcore challenge. You kind of want to see which guild is leading the charge. You actually see Hardcore Charlie is the most has the most XP by guild. Again, sample size, keep it all in mind. Who was logged in at the time that this was taken? Semi-casual, Hardcore Bravo, Delta, Alpha, Season 1, soon to be Softcore. Kind of cool stuff. Looking at the race distribution, looks very similar to everything else. We can see human leading the way. Lots of hunters. Not surprised by that. If I was going to try to do a hardcore challenge, I'd probably be a hunter because it's, the easiest class to level, especially with quests giving more XP. perfectly caters to the hunter playstyle, being able to do quests very effectively. If you don't want to die, you have feigned death, you've got a pet, you've got lots of options. Hunter's a great choice here, and that is the most played class on the Alliance. We have Hunters, and then actually Warrior, I could totally see that as well, because actually Mage is a little bit ahead by 1%, and then Warrior, but I could totally see someone wanting the hardest of the hardcore experience and wanting to play a Warrior. All right, let's move on to Mutanus. So Mutanus, we have a very, very nice 41-59 split between Horde and Alliance, which is very cool considering it's a PvP server. Looking at some of the races, nothing surprising here. Undead leading the way, Mage being the most played class. So Undead, Mage, pretty much one of the most common race class combinations in Season of Mastery. Looking at Alliance, we can see, of course, Human, and then we see Mage being very popular, and actually Rogue being very popular. I think, of course, on a PvP server, we can see Rogues being very popular. I'm going to really quickly jump over to Shadowstrike just for a second. So see how this is a PvE server, and I see this is actually where we saw some of the strangeness is rogues are very less, you know, their proportion of players playing rogue is much less on a PvE server than on a PvP server like Mutanus. So that I think plays into effect here. But kind of interesting how Horde doesn't have as many rogues here on Mutanus as much as the Alliance does here. We're seeing a lot of the really good classes, Mage, Rogue. Up here we're seeing lots of Mage, Hunter, kind of the top classes. So a little bit different going on here. Mutanus being the unofficial RP PvP server. Perhaps there's less min-maxing going on here, but still very, very cool stuff. Moving on to Nightfall. Again, the populations are getting lower as we go down. We can see here Undead, and we're seeing Mage. Nothing new there. If we move down to Alliance, we can see Human, Mage. We're seeing a lot of that common element again. Rogue, yeah, in a good spot, pretty average. Hunter, Rogue, pretty high populations. Mage. Moving on to Swamp of Sorrows. Now, guys, this really is a Swamp of Sorrow. Like, when I was on here, these numbers are so small. Like, 34 orcs were playing when I logged on. Granted, time zone difference, whatever. There could potentially have been way more players during peak hours. But Swamp of Sorrows, you can see here, showing a lot of the same thing. You know, Undead, Rogue, Undead, Mage. Here's, like, the leveling chart. And then, it's kind of cool. It's, where is it? Black Swamp. Our Swamp. I thought that was cool. You can see the race distribution here. Humans mostly, Mage. So Mage, Hunter for Alliance, very, very popular. Very consistent, which is very surprising to me. And then here we have Lionheart, the least populated World of Warcraft Season of Mastery server. You can see here there's 0 priests on Horde when I was pulling this, which is crazy. There's actually a guild called Yeah Nah. They're just like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. Yeah, not a lot of people getting very far with leveling. Generally speaking, just not a lot of data to draw conclusions. If we go to the Alliance side, actually has more of the population there. And you can kind of see some of the similar trends we saw before with like Humans. Night Elf is actually pretty high as well with 30%. Hunter at 28.95%, really dominating this server, but Lionheart being the lowest population server. Anyways, guys, all this data available to you. Hope it's helpful. The add-on I used was called like Census Classic WoW. Their website does not work. I went there. There is no data. You can't upload it there. It just links you to different ads. It's completely useless. Anyways, hope this was helpful, guys. Like and subscribe for more. Take care.